irregular present verb conjugation in Spanish doesn't follow one fixed pattern. Instead, many irregular Spanish verbs have their own special conjugation, which means that they must be memorized, because other patterns for them might not be predictable. In my previous video, I explained regular Spanish verb conjugation in the present, showing stems and their endings. In this video, I'll explain irregular present verb conjugation, and although many Spanish verbs are irregular, some have patterns. Of course, knowing all irregular verbs is impossible, so in this video, I will show the most common ones and their patterns, along with phrases in the end. Let's begin with the concept of an irregular verb. A verb is irregular when it doesn't follow the standard ways or stem patterns of regular verbs. The irregularity usually appears in three ways: stem changes, irregular yo forms, and totally irregular verbs. Let's see stem changing verbs, where a vowel changes in the stem. This pattern is sometimes called the boot pattern because of the shape it forms in conjugation charts, and also because the stem change happens in all forms except nosotros and vosotros. That's why it resembles a boot. The first type is e to e, where the letter e becomes ye. One verb is pensar, to think. Pienso, piensas, piensa, pensamos, pensáis, piensan. All endings are regular for ar verbs, but the stem changes from e to ye in yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos. When highlighting their placement in the chart, their shape looks like a boot, and that's why they're called boot verbs. As a phonetic rule, the stem change is pronounced as one syllable, because that's the position of the stress in the conjugations. Basically, we have to pronounce the words on the stem change itself. It's not pienso, piensas. It's pienso, piensas. So the syllable with the stem change is pronounced as one, and that explains the formation of stem changes in Spanish verbs. This sound rule is true for any stem change in any verb. Other common verbs that change e to ye are querer, empezar, entender, cerrar. So the stem change happens only in yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos. A different type is e to e, and this change happens mainly with ir verbs. One verb is pedir, to ask for. Pido, pides, pide, pedimos, pedís, piden. Once again, the endings are regular for ir verbs, and the stem change happens in the boot. The stress is also said in the stem change itself, in the conjugations that are in the boot. Other common verbs that change e to e are repetir, servir, seguir. A different type is o to u, where the letter o becomes we, pronounced as one syllable. One verb is dormir, to sleep. Duermo, duermes, duerme, dormimos, dormís, duermen. The endings are regular for ir verbs. The stem change happens in the boot, and the stress is said in the stem changes. Other common verbs that change o to we are poder, volver, encontrar, contar, recordar. As a note, poder can be used as a noun, meaning power or authority, but as a verb, it means can or be able to. The last type of stem change is u to we, which is less common but still important. In this pattern, u changes to we in the stem, only happening in the boot pattern. One common verb is jugar, to play. Juego, juegas, juega, jugamos, jugáis, juegan. The stem change happens in the boot, and the stress is said in the stem changes. As a note, juego can be a noun, meaning game, but as a conjugated verb, it means I play. After learning stem-changing verbs in the present, we can now see a different type of irregularity, such as verbs that are only irregular in the yo pronoun. These verbs are very common in Spanish, but they only change in yo. One type of irregular yo verbs is the ending go. One verb is hacer, to do or to make. Hago, haces, hace, hacemos, hacéis, hacen. The endings are regular for verbs, but the change in yo is the only irregular one. Even though Spanish has many verbs that are irregular in yo, it's not that hard to remember them, because they only change in one pronoun. Other common verbs that take the ending go in yo are poner, salir, tener, venir, decir. Some of these verbs can have multiple irregularities, which I will show later. Another type of irregular yo verbs is the ending sco. One verb is conducir, to drive. Conduzco, conduces, conduce, conducimos, conducís, conducen. The endings are regular for verbs, and the conjugation in yo is the only irregular one. Other common verbs that take sco in yo are conocer, traducir, producir. After learning irregular yo verbs, we can finish with totally irregular verbs, and verbs that can have multiple irregularities in different pronouns. For such verbs, it can be difficult to find common patterns, so it's much better to memorize them because they're very frequent in Spanish. One common verb is ir, to go. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. By looking at the verb, we can see that most conjugations follow endings from ar verbs, along with the fact that yo uses y. Also, there is no accent in vais, because the conjugation is a monosyllable and is pronounced as one, which is why an accent is not needed. It's important to point out this information because it can help you with pattern recognition in other irregular verbs, like dar, to give, which follows the same pattern. Doy, das, da, damos, dais, dan. Yo has y, and dais is without an accent. One verb that is different from this pattern is ver, to see, where most conjugations are regular, but the irregularity is in yo. When we conjugate verbs, we drop the infinitive ending and add the right endings. But with ver, a conjugation like bo doesn't sound uniform. So just drop r and then add o, making the conjugation irregular. Veo, ves, ve, vemos, veis, ven. A different verb that is also irregular in yo is saber, to know factual information. This verb requires a separate explanation in a future video, but in this video, we can simply see its conjugations. Sé, sabes, sabe, sabemos, sabéis, saben. This verb is only irregular in yo. Considering all of these ideas, Spanish has verbs that combine irregular patterns, where some verbs are stem changing and irregular in the yo form, like tener, to have. Tener takes the ending go in yo, and the stem change of e to ye. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, tienen. What makes tener special is that it has more uses than English, which apply to possession, feelings, and idiomatic conditions. If in English we use to be to express ideas like hunger and age, in Spanish we rely on tener. Tengo hambre. Tengo frío. Tengo 22 años. Tengo un perro. A similar verb that takes the same pattern is venir, to come. Vengo, vienes, viene, venimos, venís, vienen. A different verb that takes the ending go in yo is decir, to say or to tell. But this verb uses the stem change of e to i instead. Digo, dices, dice, decimos, decís, dicen. In conclusion, these are the general patterns for irregular present verb conjugation in Spanish. Instead of memorizing entire verbs, you can remember their categories, like stem changing, irregular yo, and totally irregular ones. As I said in the beginning, knowing all irregular verbs is not necessary because you will not use them all. So instead, focus on the commonly used ones. Nonetheless, two important verbs remain in the language that I did not show, which are irregular, and they both mean to be. Ser, estar. The reason I didn't show these verbs is that they require specific explanations in their own topic, which I will do in the next video. To finish this video, we can see some useful sentences using different irregular verbs. Quiero aprender español. Pido café. Puedo ayudarte. Juego al fútbol. Tengo 2 hermanos. Hago mi tarea. Salgo con mis amigos. Conozco a tu profesor. Voy a la universidad. Overall, this is how irregular verbs fully work in the present in Spanish.